So it's Thursday. Psych, it's Wednesday. Just messing with you. Another episode, Eagles Elite Podcast. We talking everything Philadelphia Eagles. You already know the rundown this week. We hitting you with the breaking news and rumors. Of course, we always got those about the squad. We hitting you with the top 10 tight ends in Philadelphia Eagles history. And then we can also drop a little review of the week 3 game, first meeting against the Commanders from last season. Just, getting us through, helping us remember some of the good and some of the not so good weeks that we had throughout the season. We know where we ended up. We'll end up there as well. But hey, right now, it's time to get into it. So go ahead and bring on my guy, Wyatt. Wyatt, what's good, man?
Come on, man. Not much. Just another week, getting very geared up for OTAs and training camp in the season. Can't come, fast enough. But, we got a lot to talk about here. I fill that time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we get into what we're going to use to fill that time, there is something that we need to rock.
Yes, sir.
Let's get it.
The kick is away, and the kick is, it's good! And the Eagles win!
It's hard to come to South Philadelphia and leave here with the win. You just don't come to Philadelphia and leave here with the win.
Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. Let the celebration begin.
All right. So a lot to get into. Of course, one of our big supporters, Philly. What up? What's good, Philly? Appreciate you tuning in and checking out the episode with us. Yeah, man. But as we talked about, go ahead and get this thing started. We got our breaking news and of course rumors. So Wyatt, I know you got a little juiciness for us, and I probably can slide a little juiciness in as well.
Yeah, the first thing here this week, Lane Johnson has been cleared for Eagles workouts after having surgery after the Super Bowl on his abdomen. He's officially cleared. He's going to be ready for OTAs, training camp, and all that. We got our, premier All-Pro right tackle there.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing for the organization, man. I know, we talk a lot about a lot of different things, but one thing that is important is that one of the big pieces of that has always been Lane Johnson. So having him there and having him doing things. So, glad to hear that. And, just glad that he's doing what needs to be done.
Yeah, I don't even remember what the timetable was after the surgery. So it was kind of surprising whenever I saw that he was cleared already. He's like, damn, that. Hey, I'm fine with that, man. And then it seems, coming up on some other news, they're just adding more depth to that O-line, just in case.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing you want to do, man. Just want to get things as good as they can be, so that way, once the season starts, we're doing what needs to happen. Let's do all the work. Let's get everything done now. So when we get to OTAs, when we get to training camp and all that, guys are healthy, ready to go. And that's kind of where we're sitting at right now. So glad to, have that going on.
Yeah. The other thing I have, since I mentioned already, so we actually bringing in a veteran offensive lineman, DJ Fluker. He apparently worked with Jeff Stoutland whenever he was in Alabama for a little bit. I guess he played for the Seahawks. I do know I think maybe the Ravens, at one point. But dude is huge. Dude is a beast. he's jacked. He's still out here putting the work in. He wants to make a comeback to the NFL. So I feel like if he can make the team, if Jeff Stoutland thinks he's capable, look at the other depth pieces we've had on the roster over the years. They were able to come in and be serviceable. You have a beast like this come in here and is able to fill that line. Hopefully that we don't have to use him as much because he would just be a depth piece. But that's a nice piece to have, though. They're still working.
Yeah, the big thing is, man, you want to make sure. Again, he's a guy. That's, I read an article about that as well, and he's lost about 40 pounds. Still a big
Mhm.
individual, but he's lost enough weight to be a little bit more explosive. Another guy
Agile.
to maybe able to add to some depth. Yep, agility could be a little bit better now. There's a little bit of a smaller weight. Um, Looks like he's been taking things very seriously as far as his body and getting everything together. So
Mhm.
he should be an interesting guy, just to see what he can do for us as far as bringing him in. So excited about that piece being added as well. I always love when we have some of those guys that just kind of slide in and they're able to do their thing and just help the team be, uh, you know, as good as it can be at times.
Yeah, and it lets you know that not only are they looking at kind of like O-line, but just in general, they're still trying to fill out this roster a little bit. They still
Hmm.
feel like there's some work to be done. There's some pieces that need to be had. And I mean, like I've been saying over the past couple of weeks, I think there's going to be like another trade at some point. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, but I think gearing up towards training camp or maybe right before that week 1, I think there's going to be another trade that happens. But I mean, Howie's constantly trying to improve the team though.
Yeah. Yeah. Fluker's another one of these guys that can play multiple positions on the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this never hurts to have more depth there. And like you said, with Stoutland being a guy that's going to be coaching him up and working with him, come on. It's almost a no brainer to at least bring him in and let's see, what he can bring. He's versatile, right? If he can keep his size down and be in a good range where he can, be a effective piece for us as far as depth, that's
Mm-hmm.
just another positive for the Eagles.
Yeah, and I mean he is like I think 31 or 32, so he is up there a little bit. But I mean it's no different than bringing like on the defensive line last year, bringing like Suh or Linval Joseph or anything like that. It's just another depth
It's
signing, no matter
actually,
how old they are, as long as they can come in and fill that job, and they don't let the quarterback and protect Jalen Hurts a little bit. That's fine.
yeah, and he's been out of the league a couple of years. I think he hasn't played since 2020. So he's a
Hmm.
guy that's gotten himself healed up a little bit. So hopefully, you know, he's another piece that we just had. Like I say,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens throughout training camp and down the road, but definitely are not upset, uh, with the pickup.
Yeah. Some other news I have here: the Eagles OTAs are going to be beginning on May 30th. They will not have mandatory mini camp this season, just 6 OTA sessions before they break for the summer, before they come back for training camp here, which I'm sure this is just all part of just trying to keep these players healthy as long as possible. I mean, it seems like every year they're trying to go through some more protocols as far as like maybe shortening practices, not going like, all in certain practices for a certain amount of time, shortening practices or even just cutting practices like this, like mandatory camp. It just seems like they're just trying to keep these players healthy as possible. And that's why over the past couple of seasons, we were able to pretty much stay healthy for the most part all season. So, I mean, I'm all for this.
Yep. So another piece of news, maybe a rumor that I have one is, the Eagles want Cam Jurgens to earn the right guard spot. They want him to be the center of the future,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to utilize him while Jason Kelsey is still playing as a right guard.
That's not surprising. We talked about that before because
Mhm.
we felt like we didn't want him to just sit behind for another year and not do anything. You want him to be able out there, have that, that chemistry with everybody else on that offensive line. I mean, you'd just be moving one spot over a little bit. I'm sure it is way different than being a center, but I mean, you have that chemistry with the O line. That way, it is a little easier. That way, for him to slide over to that center position when who knows when Kelsey is gone. He keeps acting like he's going to be here for a little while longer now. The way he's talking now about how much fun he's having and everything. So, I mean, if Kelsey's plans on being here another year or two, I mean, we may have to use Jurgens there at right guard.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where it's coming from. I kind of follow you on that aspect. I think what they're realizing is they actually may have Kelsey for a couple more years. So let's get Jurgens on the field. Let's get him used to the NFL game. Obviously, there are differences, as you were just saying, between playing right guard and playing center, but at least you're on the field. You're in that lineup. You're getting the cadence. You're learning the quarterback. You're seeing what he likes to do. So you're getting some of that connection. Not quite what a center would have, but you're getting some of that connection with him right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yeah, because I mean, you don't want to just like kind of like decrease Kelsey's like reps by any means, because he's still playing as the best center in football still. I mean, it's amazing how he's able to do what he's been able to do at his age right now going forward. I mean, he's consistently the number one center in football. That's why, I mean, they went out and broke the bank kind of for him. It made him the highest paid center in the league for a reason. And I mean, he rarely ever gets hurt. He had that record for the most consecutive snaps for an Eagle. So, I mean, as long as he can consistently play at a high level like this, there's no reason to, worry about his replacement right now, even though they kind of thought it was coming to that with his retirement. But with the way this Eagles team got kind of rebuilt so quickly, I mean, seems like he's all in now.
Yep. Definitely, man. And another thing, so Jason Kelsey was asked, who do he think was the biggest offseason loss from the Eagles? And his response was Isaac Seumalo.
Yeah.
Because he played left guard. So, we lost that position.
He said he was like the smartest player he's ever played with, or something like that. It was interesting.
One of the best guards, one of the smartest players. And that basically we're not going to really replace him, but there's going to be someone new there. And hopefully they have some of those attributes, because he's been on the team last 76 seasons, last 77 seasons. To me, it's 7 seasons. Played in all the games during this time, started in 60 of them. So that's a lot of losses that we'll have as far as experience.
That's crazy. He's been here that long. It doesn't feel like that, because he's just so you never hear about Seumalo very often. I mean, it's not like he gives up a lot of sacks. He's very quiet. He's not as outspoken as like Lane or Kelsey, or even Mailata is kind of coming in his own as a personality for the Eagles. So I mean, Seumalo is definitely the quiet one on the O-line and on the team. You've rarely heard about him.
Yeah, definitely. So a couple of things about Nakobe Dean. So I actually had a little time today, so I kind of dug into some stuff. So they're expecting Nakobe Dean to take a huge step this year and kind of be an anchor for the linebacking core, obviously with the other starters being gone. And then also he's a guy that wants to take over as a defensive leader. He's ready for it, he says. So I like the enthusiasm as well. So Nakobe Dean was also a guy that said, and this is not a direct quote, but me quoting his quote, let's say that. He said that they're not complacent. They like what Sean Desai is bringing to the team. They're going to be more aggressive, and that he's prepared to take on a role. He's prepared, and we as a team are prepared to try to defend our NFC championship and go further than we did last year, winning the Super Bowl. And he doesn't look at it as if there's a target on our back. He looks at it as if there's a target on all the teams that we're playing back for us to beat them. So I love the mentality. I love the way he's talking. I mean, we won't see what happens until we see him on the field, but it sounds like he has, the correct mindset to be in Philadelphia, and I love it. And I hope he's a guy that really does pan out for the Eagles.
Yeah, and to add on to that, like I watched like the same press conference and everything. It's just like, I guess it was like was high school coach or college coach or someone told him that like in the off seasons you're never going to stay at the same level. You're either going to get worse or you're going to get better. And Nakobe Dean said that last year he felt that he should have been a starter. He felt like he was a starter. But he says there's so much depth. He felt like it would have kind of maybe messed up that chemistry a little bit if they would have thrown him in there in the middle of the season or something. So he just kind of stayed in his role. But this offseason, knowing that he was coming into probably that starter job, he spent this whole offseason so far just working on his craft. And he feels like he's even at a better place as a player and as a teammate. Like you were saying, he wants to be a leader on the squad. So, I mean, even though it sucks we didn't get to see too much of him, and what we did see from him last year was really great, I think he's going to be amazing coming into this season. Just the way that he talks and how much of a leader it seems like he is and how much work he's putting in. I think he's going to make an immediate impact coming onto this team, like as a starter.
Yeah, definitely, man. So it's going to be a big thing about him. And then one person, I'm not going into too much depth about this because I know we want to talk about tight ends and save ourselves some time to really get into the game last year. But Keely Ringo. right? He's a guy that there's a lot of rumors is going to have a big part in this offense.
Okay.
He's 6'2", 207 pounds. He ran a 4.36 40-yard dash. This dude
Damn.
is the prototype for a cornerback in the NFL. He's built like a safety with size and speed that can play corner.
Mm-hmm.
So if he can learn at the feet of two of the better corners in the NFL, we talked about this before, but just got to go back to it. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of excitement about me for Keely Ringo because I understand we don't need him to be what he wants to be at the moment. We need him to be that down the road.
Yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
excited about his ability to be that.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, it was going to be like the working with Slay and Bradbury. That's definitely going to help him out going forward. And not only with Slay and Bradbury, but it's also going to be going up against some of the top wide receivers in the league with, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown as well. So that'll also help him out in the long run.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot going on there. They've got some other rumors, but we can get to another week. But there's some out there just to kind of give a quick preview of them. There's some out there where they're even talking about
Yeah.
different players. They've got rumors on what the depth chart's going to be. So many exciting pieces, man. That
Mhm.
it's just great to see that we're getting
Yeah.
into this part where we're starting to talk about the Eagles, what the Eagles are going to bring, those sort of things.
Yeah. And actually, before we move on, the one note I had here, because over this past week, we've been getting a lot of these press conferences, interviews with players and everything. Dallas Goedert actually mentioned that he's been spending extra time after practice and everything with with AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Greg Ward working and fine tuning his route running and his other pass catching abilities and everything. So it seems like Dallas Goedert, even though he's been playing at a high level, is just trying to take it one step further. And he's even working with the other wide receivers to try to, up his game a little bit, maybe kind of get on their level. So if he can learn something from like AJ and Devontae, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be even more dangerous.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Um, so we got a comment here from Analyze and Educate, all about the pieces that are coming to the same Shady Sports Network. Yep, definitely shout out to Shady Sports Network. Of course, it's a partner. It's also streaming the Eagles Elite podcast, so definitely shout out to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go ahead and move on here, man, to our next topic, of course, which will be if I can find it here. Everything froze up on a second for me. Here we go. All right, so we'll move on to the Eagles' top 10 tight ends in the history of the franchise. All right, why did you want to start, or you want me to start?
I can start, man. I got old Bobby Walston at number 10 here. Played from 1951 to 62. Got 2 Pro Bowls. Pro Bowl back-to-back in 1960 and 61. Former being the championship season. After making just 4 catches in 9 games, Walston left the team in 1962. But he was selected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame on the All-50s team.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with L.J. Smith at 10.
Okay.
L.J. Smith joined as a second-round pick in 2003, played at Rutgers in college. Rookie year didn't do too much, but in 2004, he caught 34 balls for 377 yards and 5 scores. In the NFC Championship game, in the Super Bowl, he opened up the scoring in Super Bowl 39 with his own career playoff touchdown. So, had some contributions. Team was really hurt in 2005, the year after the Super Bowl. He had his strongest year with 61 catches for 682 yards. Then in 2006, he still had 50 for 611 yards and 5 touchdowns. He looked like he was going to be our guy at tight end, moving forward. 2007, 2008, injuries cut him a little bit short. The last 2 years he was on the Eagles, he only played in 23 games. Went to the Ravens, had 2 catches in 2009, and then he was out of football. So, it teaches you how short your career can be in the NFL. But I think LJ Smith was a guy who, because of the contributions in times where it was really needed, and we had some really good teams in that, that run from about 2000, about 2006, we had some really good teams.
Mhm.
So being a guy that had some good contributions to that, I'm going to slide him in there just barely, but I'm going to slide him in there.
Okay. My number 9 here, I got Jack Ferrante from 1941 and 1950. He was part of the 48 championship team. He did get two second team All-Pro, nominations, and he was on the second team All-Pro team. He had 464 yards and 7 touchdowns in a season. He did follow it up with another 7 touchdowns the next season with 588 yards, it says. But he was a pretty decent, tight end at the time. I mean, that was way early in the Eagles' history, though. I mean, that was one of those first championship seasons.
And at number 10, you had who?
Bobby Walston.
Okay, I want to make sure we didn't have the same person. At number 9, I have John Spagnuolo.
Okay.
So he was a main offensive mainstay throughout the 80s. He was drafted by the Patriots in the 9th round in 1979 out of Yale. He got cut by the Patriots and ended up with the Eagles. Worked his way into the lineup, played all 16 games the first of his 2 seasons. He caught 18 balls for 193 yards, 3 touchdowns when the Eagles made it to our first Super Bowl in the early 80s under our crying coach, of course. In 81, the season got shortened with injuries. He did play in 82, but he missed the whole entire 83 season. He had a herniated disc. He has 2 best seasons in 84 and 84. No, 84 and 85, excuse me. 84, he had 65 catches for 701 yards. Then 85, 64 catches for 772 yards and 5 touchdowns. So good span there. After the seasons, his productivity went down. Caught less than 40 balls and 400 yards the final 2 years with the Eagles. Played 1 year in Seattle and Green Bay. And then that was it. So, So far from me earlier, we're seeing guys that, shorter careers. And then they kind of, stepped it up a little bit later on in the process. So that's what we're seeing.
Okay. My number 8 here is straight up due to recency bias, and that is Dallas Goedert. Number 8. Straight up due to recency bias. We did draft him in 2018 after the Super Bowl season, of course. But I mean, he's making a strong case for himself. He doesn't have the awards as far as like Pro Bowls or All Pros, but I mean, he has a very solid season so far. After his rookie season, he did have 600 yards, 500 yards, 800 yards, and then 700 yards last year. So, I mean, he's consistently putting in that work. He's not missing very many games. We have talked about he does have those
Butterfingers.
He does every now and then, and it's only in certain moments too. It's not all the time, but he can be elite. As we saw last year, those screens that he was running last year, he was just bulldozing guys over. Like, tight ends should not be running screens like that, I feel, and just plowing through 5 dudes when you're starting past the line, is like before the line of scrimmage. It's ridiculous. The only reason I have him on here is because not only because of the resume now, but because of the resume I think he's going to have going forward as a premier tight end in the league and on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay. So I'm going to go with your number 9, Jack Ferrante.
Okay.
He played both ways back in his day. He did fight in World War II as well. He joined in 41. I think you said that. Played 3 games and then he spent 2 years in the armed forces. Came back in 44. 21 balls for 464 yards and 7 touchdowns. Obviously continued to excel both ways. Twice he was the second team All-Pro. Caught 7 more touchdowns in the 1948 championship season. So this is how far back that he played. His best year was his last year, ironically, 35 balls for 588 yards and 3 touchdowns in 12 games. Then he left football at age 34. That's crazy. So you lost years to the military, still retired at 34, and had your best season the year before you retired. Very interesting. Very interesting.
That's wild,
but
man.
yeah, man, that's the type of guy he was. Those back in the days when everybody almost was a two-way player, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're number 7 here. Mine, I have Chad Lewis at number 7 here. Played in 97 with his rookie season. Unfortunately, he had an injury. We ended up cutting him. He went to the Rams for a little bit. He ended up coming back with us from 99 through 2005. He ended up with 3 Pro Bowls in a row, which is, pretty uncommon, especially for tight ends. I mean, at the time, but 3 Pro Bowls in a row. He had a pretty successful couple of years whenever he came back for us. He caught 69 balls for 735 yards. They were both career highs for him and 3 scores. 2 more seasons where there were 40 catches, including a career high 6 touchdowns in 2001. His regular season numbers dropped over the last couple seasons, but he did have a huge game where he caught 2 touchdowns against the Falcons as the Eagles finally won an NFC title game in 2004. So, I mean, he had the last couple seasons were a little low, but he had those big moments that kind of pushed us to the brink there in that 2004 season, going towards that Super Bowl.
Yep. So in number 7, I went with Keith Jackson.
Okay.
Best career start of any tight end in Eagles history. Drafted him 13th in 1988 out of Oklahoma. This way he won a national title. Made 3 straight Pro Bowls and all-pro teams. But only his rookie season he played out 16 games. That year he had 81 catches for 860 yards and 6 touchdowns. He had 7 catches for 142 yards in the Fall Bowl division round loss to Chicago. 89 and 90, both had over 600 yards, including 6 more in 90 on just 50 catches. Definitely was on a really good offense, but he stood out because of his size and reliability. He didn't play 16 games again until 1991, but he had 58 catches, 569 yards that year. And that was with the worst QB injury season that we had in franchise history, kind of like what the 49ers are still crying about.
Yeah.
He didn't stay in Philly, though. That's the thing. He ended up leaving and going to the Dolphins. So that kind of prevented him, to me, from being a little bit higher on my list. But what he did when he was in Philly definitely puts him on my list. Just can't go higher than 7.
Okay. My number 6 here, I had Charlie Young. He was with us from 73 through 76. And all 3 years, he had 3 All-Pros with us. He led the team in receiving both in 74 and 75, and unfortunately he was traded to the Rams, but he was traded for Ron Jaworski, which was not a bad trade. So I mean, he had really good seasons under a bad quarterback situations, which is pretty insane. And of course, Ron Jaworski came in; he wasn't there, but he had those really good seasons, which I mean, will go down in history because he was one of the top tight ends for us.
Right. So I don't actually need to say anything about mine because I actually had Chad Lewis at 6.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah. So you've already kind of talked about him, so I don't need to rehash that one.
Yeah. Same with my number 5. I have Keith Jackson there, who you've already mentioned.
All right. So my number 5, I have Bobby Walston.
Okay. Gotcha. So my number 4 then, I actually have Brent Selleck from 07 through 17. Through 2017. He retired right after that Super Bowl. I mean, once again, another guy that, he didn't have the awards or anything, but man, he was old reliable. I mean, he wasn't just out there pass catching everything. He was a great blocker as well. And I mean, he stuck around for the long haul. And I mean, he's not only that, but by the long haul, I also mean he had some terrible QBs in that amount of time. So I mean, just kind of how Kelsey kind of stuck around and is seeing this team rebuild. That's what Brent Selleck was trying to do for a while there. But I mean, he was old reliable for a while there until we ended up getting another old reliable whenever we drafted another tight end, which we will get to higher up on the list.
Oh yeah, but yeah, Brent Selleck, man, best year 2009 was his breakout year. 76 catches, 971 yards, and 8 touchdowns. First of 5 straight years with over 500 receiving yards. And like you said, you got to understand, through this middle of the run, that's when we had some challenges, we'll say, at quarterback. Some challenges, we'll say. So, yeah, solid but not spectacular, but sometimes that's what's needed.
Yeah. Number 3, I had Pete Retzlaff.
Had him at 3 also. Wow.
4-time All-Pro. He's a key part of the 1960 NFL championship team. He's still ranked second on the all-time list of receptions and yards. I'm not sure if that's still true. I'll have to look at that one. I didn't double-check that fact, so I'll have to hold off on that one. But he did later become an Eagles general manager as well. It's pretty interesting. But he ended up with like 7,000 yards and 47 touchdowns as an Eagle.
Yeah, he was our GM from 69 to 72. He didn't do good in that role, though, but he did.
No.
He was a flanker for his first 3 years in the league because he was drafted in 53 by the Lions in the 22nd round. That's how many rounds they had back there because of so few teams. He didn't make the team. He went into the Army, came back, got with the Eagles in 56. Played flanker for 3 years, then he moved to tight end. He led the NFL with 56 receptions and made a Pro Bowl in 1958. In 59, when he moved, 34 catches for 594 yards. Championship year in 60, 46 for 826 and 5 scores. Made another Pro Bowl. Great guy for the team. Far back, kind of had to dig to get info on him just because of when he played and everything, but definitely belongs high on the top 10 list.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Number 2, that's one we're at now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got Pete Pihos.
So do I. So that means we got number 1 the same as well.
Most likely, yeah. He had 6 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pros. He made impacts on both sides of the ball in his first season in 47. And he also helped make the first championship game for the Eagles as well. In his second year, he caught 46 balls for 766 yards and 11 touchdowns as the Eagles won their first NFL title. I mean, dude was an absolute monster. He made the NFL Hall of Fame. All 1940s team was inducted in Canton in 1970.
Yep. There's not much to say about him, man. You've pretty much cleared that one up.
Yeah, and I mean, you can go ahead and introduce number 1. We all know who number 1 is.
Yeah, number 1 is Zach Ertz. If you have a list of top 10 tight ends of Philadelphia Eagles and you don't have Zach Ertz number 1, shame on you. Go back to the drawing board and try again.
Yeah, that's where I started. As soon as you say it was top 10 tight end, Zach Ertz number 1. That's actually one of my jerseys I have retired that I keep on my chair here. My old Zach Ertz jersey. I don't wear that one anymore. That's retired. That's a special jersey. Zach Ertz is one of my favorite players of all time for the Eagles, man. And it was such a crushing day whenever we traded him. But I mean, it's business. It's football. We knew it was going to happen sooner or later because there was all the past couple years leading up to that where there was nothing but trades about getting rid of him. So rumors about getting rid of him. But I mean, he goes down. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, he became that old reliable for us. I mean, that was kind of the years where we didn't really have any great wide receivers for a while. I mean, you had a couple of decent players, but no like elite, talent. So they kind of had to lean on Zach Ertz a lot going through those years, especially when old number 11 got drafted. That was his main weapon for a while. And then of course in the Super Bowl, I mean, he went all out in the Super Bowl. I mean, he had one of the amazing touchdowns, the diving touchdown where they had to review that for as long as possible and everything. But I mean, just the impact that he's had on this team, that can't be underestimated.
Yeah, definitely, man. He has the all-time receiving record for a single season by a tight end with 116 catches. In 2018, he also had 1,163 yards and 8 touchdowns. So 2018 was a monster year. 2019, he followed up with 88 catches, 219 in 2019. Third best in the franchise history. and then 916 yards. So he was just a guy that did a lot for us. He did eventually get traded to the Arizona Cardinals, but that was more money in the business side of things. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you said, man, I was like, all I need to know is who is in spots 2 through 10 because we know number one is.
Exactly.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So that'll wrap up our top 10 list. So we're going to be moving on to our season game week 3 review versus the Commanders. And we are going to be joined by my guy, Martin Pounds. Martin, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man?
What's happening, dude?
Just
Can
chilling,
y'all
man.
hear
Just
me?
chilling. Oh, yeah, we
Yeah, I
can
can
hear
hear
you,
you.
man. We can hear you, man. So, yeah, Martin,
Okay.
LiveWire
What's
Sports
going on?
Entertainment, diehard Commanders fan, agreed to hop on and just, talk through this game with us this year. We're also going to have Martin back for the second game because if we're going to have him on for this, we got to let him come back and talk the second one, right? Because we all know what happened then. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna do the double route for Martin, so we get a chance to kind of give us a little gloat on the second time around. So we're gonna be fair.
You see that hat right there? It's all about Sam Howell, baby.
I hear you, man. I hear you. So we'll start with this game week 3, Martin, as our guest. We'll go with your starts first, man. So talk to us about, as a Commanders fan, you're watching this game. What did you see positive? What did you see not so positive while watching this game as a fan of your team?
Ooh, man, I'm telling you, just to start off with the schedule in itself, man, when I first seen the schedule came out, I was like, man, it's going to be a rough one because we got the Cardinals, Broncos, Bills, then we have the Eagles. We was the first team last year to get the Eagles their first loss.
So we ain't there yet, though. We're not there yet.
Oh,
You're
not
right.
there
We're not
yet.
there yet.
My bad.
Yeah, we're not there yet. Yeah. It's all good. We're gonna get to that one later. We'll have you back on for that one. Yeah.
All right.
We don't want to go through that pain twice.
So let me get it straight. You recapping last year's schedule?
Yes, sir. The
Yeah,
first
week
game.
3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
we'll come back to we'll have you back on to
right.
do that second game. Yeah.
Well, anyway, last year, week 3, I knew our offensive line was bad. It was really, really shaky, and I didn't know what Carson Wentz was going to give us. I wasn't for Carson Wentz because even though he had some good years in Philly before he got injured, but I haven't seen anything else from him. And then when he went with the Colts, he was supposed to had them in the playoffs, and that didn't happen. And then so, we got him. I was like, okay, let me play devil's advocate. Let me give him a chance. And lo and behold, y'all sacked 9 times. Like 9 times in that game. And to be honest with you, I was over it I was over with Carson Wentz right then after that. But even though I knew our offensive line was bad, and we did anything to continue to help him. I mean, it's like every time he dropped back, he got sacked, or the offensive lineman got pushed into him for a sack. So it was really brutal. I mean, from that point, I knew Philly had something special that for that season. I just didn't know it was going to take them all the way to the Super Bowl. But the way they started off that game against us, I mean, it's like they had a grudge. Like they lost some money or somewhere, and they just took it out on us that game. So, but all in all, man, that game was not. It gave me a lot of anxiety. I didn't expect for us to do what we did through the season. I expected the worst because of that, because of the offensive line.
Well, I'll say this. So Martin also does the NFC Beats podcast where we talk about all things NFC East during the football season. So we talked on there, right? And y'all know, if you've watched this show before and heard me say anything about Carson Wentz or any show I've talked about Carson Wentz, I told Martin, if Carson Wentz is on your squad as your starting quarterback, you're in trouble. Now, Martin agreed with me, but he wanted to have, like a wait and see, maybe things will go good, positive outlook. But I was trying to run him. I said, well, guy, I think your team's pretty good. But if you're going to have one of the most mentally soft quarterbacks in the NFL as your quarterback, that's going to be a problem. Yeah. And that turned out to be, especially in this game, because I think the team, this was their first time getting a chance to knock Carson Wentz on his since he was traded from the team. So he got that opportunity. So then he was able to roll with it. So I think that the team was excited, coaching staff, players, especially the guys that played with him, they really wanted to show him like, oh, you did all that to get up out of Philly. We're going to put you on your butt a lot. And I think he also, I guess the word I'm looking for is accidentally inspired Hurts to have a really good game as well, because he's like, oh, you thought you was better than me? Like, this is not things that he's going to say out loud, right? But you can see from the mannerisms, the maneuvering, everything. Hurts went out there to say, I'm a better quarterback than you. That's why I'm still here. You're not. And, I mean, at least for this game, I'm going to say moving forward too, but at least for this game, Jalen Hurts was the better quarterback. 22 of 35, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Great throws to Devontae Smith. A.J. Brown had a solid game as well. They both scored touchdowns. We got one out of Dallas Goedert. So a whole lot of, good things happened in that game for the Philadelphia Eagles. But at the same time, there were causes for concern. So we'll get into a little bit of one of those. Martin probably had to hop off for a second. Maybe had someone who's going to hop back on. And Wyatt, talk to us about your thoughts about this game.
Yeah, man. I think, with Martin not here, I wanted to kind of give them a little, props, because I feel like if it wasn't Carson Wentz, because exactly like you said, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham were sending texts to Carson, just a little fun, we're gonna come out and get you, you know how it is, trash talk back and forth. So they had a little fight in them. They wanted to show Carson what it was being on the other side. But I feel like if it was Heineke or someone under center for Washington, this would have been a different game. I think Heineke was the better quarterback other than Wentz. And I'm not sure what Sam Howell looks like, but even with Heineke, it seems like they played better with him. So, if you look at just the box score, all of our points, the 24 points, came in that second quarter, which is exactly, everybody, which is what we talked about last week in the week 2 game against Minnesota. All of our points came in that first half. That second half, we didn't do anything. And it's exactly what happened here. We didn't do anything in the second half. So say if you had Heineke or something to kind of, have that team a little riled up behind them, they could have went down and drove down that field to get some more points. They did it a couple times, but, something happened in the end zone. Either it was a fumble or they just got stopped there at the end zone towards the end of the game. I think they could have made it a closer game if there was somebody else back there. But Carson, he was just second-guessing himself. Couldn't get the ball out quick enough, fumbling all over the place. It was just a sloppy game for him. But like we saw later in the season, which we'll talk about eventually, this could have been a very different game with another QB in there, because both defenses were doing exactly what they needed to do for the most part for a majority of the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if Heineke was in there, it would have been a different game plan. And notice in that game, we didn't even have Brian Robinson at the time.
Right, because he was still out for getting shot. Yeah, so he wasn't there either.
Yeah, so we didn't have Brian Robinson. I think Logan Thomas. Matter of fact, Logan Thomas didn't start until probably like week 4 or 5, because we still had Amari Rodgers. Speaking of him, he's out for the season for us already. So, yeah, he messed up his Achilles already. So, and that's, but
that's tough.
Yeah, but those 9 sacks set the tone for Philly defense, where it made it so hard against us for we could get any kind of momentum. And I still don't think that even with Heineke, because of the shakiness of the offensive line at the beginning of the season, it would have made any different because Heineke has to be in rhythm. He has to have some kind of rhythm to really neutralize the offense. Now, maybe he came in, it could have been, we probably could have got a touchdown or got down the field or made the Eagles work a little bit. But I think we wasn't strong enough in the beginning of the season until later on, as the season progressed, we got a little bit stronger. So, and that's why I was like, me and Cole was, we was talking back then. It's like
No.
I argue with Commander fans about Carson Wentz. I had one guy on my, that we did. I do the Watch the Commanders, the Aftermath show on Mondays, after every game. And we was arguing back and forth about it. And I was like, dude, Carson Wentz don't have it. He doesn't. He was like, oh, we need to push the ball down the field. I said, well, then you better go get Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or somebody else, because Carson Wentz can't do it. He's a shell of himself. And not trying to fast forward, you've seen it again against the Cleveland Browns later in that year when he came back in the game. We had the game won against Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the game he hurt his finger. And the only good thing came out of it, he threw a block. You know what I'm saying? And so I mean, it just certain points, when you have the game in hand or you got a chance to win, you got to do something, and it's like he didn't want to get hit no more. He just felt shell shock and whatever the case may be. So I'm glad that experiment was over. That was the movie, The Longest Yard. That was the longest season.
I just want to say I saw a rumor that he may be going to the Cowboys as, I guess, maybe a backup or a third string quarterback there. So that's hilarious as well.
So I haven't seen anything on old boy Carson Wentz. I thought just he didn't have any job. I thought he was going to be out the league now, going to XFL or something.
Hey, well, Jerry Jones, he loves those kind of projects for some reason.
Yeah, because
he like to bring in the stray dogs.
he's a project himself. I mean, him, Jim Irsay, they might be related.
It's a possibility, man. It's a possibility.
Exactly. And throw Danny Boy Snyder in there mixed with them. That's the nephew of the bunch. Okay. So,
or the first cousin, whichever way you want to swing it.
I know, right? But yeah, I mean, all in all, man, the Eagles, they was the better team. To me, I felt like they was the better team all year. I knew they did show some vulnerability later on in the year, because they had to make some corrections. And I think when we get to that point, we'll talk about that vulnerability because, one team kind of like, there was a few teams, it kind of exposed it, but one team showed it. So, but I don't know, man. It's just, I think at that point, I think we shouldn't spend $24 million on Carson Wentz. I think we could have just drafted a quarterback. Mm-hmm. We could have either went with Heineke in the beginning of the season. You have Sam Howell, but I didn't even have no confidence in Ron Rivera or Scott Turner. I wanted them fired. I wanted them fired at the beginning of the season, and I get it. Ron Rivera is a man of men. That doesn't translate to wins on the field. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This guy has not had a winning season only 3 times. If you take away that Cam Newton years and translate it to losses, you would have had 12 losing seasons. Who does that? Who does that? You know what I'm saying?
Riverboat Ron, man. That's who does it. Riverboat Ron.
It remind me so much of Marvin Lewis when he was in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
It does actually.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And people sit here giving Ron Rivera these passes. Trust me, if you go back and watch some of my videos, I eat Ron Rivera alive. I give him kudos just for certain things. But when it comes
Let me
to
stop you
that,
right there for 1 minute, Martin. Let me explain it to my co-hosts and all the people who watch this show. He to Ron Rivera was me to Jonathan Gannon. That's all y'all need to know.
Oh, okay. Makes perfect
Yes.
sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yes, I just had to make sure everybody understood his level of disdain for Ron Rivera was high.
Is it still high at this point? Like,
yeah.
how you feel about Ron?
Man, let me tell you something. Ron Rivera they don't even draft well. Yeah, we got some complementary pieces. I give it credit for that part. But I think if we didn't get Eric Bieniemy over there, I would not give us a chance the season coming up. That's just being real with you, because I don't trust Ron Rivera's judgment. We could have got some really good playmakers last year. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Jahan Dotson. I've seen him all year, with Penn State and everything. But when you have a Drake London, when you have a Traylon Burks in your hand, or you had a Kyle Hamilton in your hand, you don't make a play for him. You let other teams trade up and jump you, and then you trade back. I get it for decent picks, but at the same time, you gotta go for what your team needs. We haven't had a guy of Sean Taylor's caliber in years. Kyle Hamilton would have fixed that.
That's a good point.
You could have literally still draft a running back. Brian Robinson probably wasn't even going nowhere yet. You got locked up and got him. Lucky Sam Howell was still there. You got him. There was things you could have do, but you didn't do it. Our secondary could have been fixed last year going into this year. You didn't have to waste picks like drafting Emmanuel Forrest or Quan Martin. Yeah, you went defense first this year when you had offensive line issues that you needed to fix right then and there. You needed a tight end. You know what I'm saying? You had Christian Gonzalez right there. These are the things that I nick him for. Everybody's raving about Emmanuel Forrest, and I hope he do good. Granted, but there was ways to make this team a little bit better in certain areas, especially when you have the biggest problem was offensive line, and you didn't fix it. You waited down the line to address it. So, and then you come out of excuses and say, well, we wanted to be aggressive, but we just didn't have a chance. I will fire you right then and there for no comments.
I would have let him go the moment he said, "Oh, we had a chance to make the playoffs," like he didn't know. I think that's the moment. That's the moment for me that I would have let him go. But I wanted to ask you something since we got you on here, Martin. I know you get a little hot thinking about Rivera and some of his stuff. I wanted to ask you a question real quick.
I need some Old Spice to cool me down.
How do you feel about the ownership change? And I know the news that's come out like the last day or so in regards to there may be an issue with the copyright and the team might have to change their name again.
Well, I just dropped a video on the OTAs and Marnie Rogers and the copyright thing, and trust me, I've been so happy about this ownership change because I'm been rooting for Josh Harris since the beginning, and people, everybody wanted Jeff Bezos, and I tell them, I said, Jeff Bezos, he might have all the money, but that doesn't mean it gets you in the club. You know what I'm saying? Because if he had, Jeff Bezos been one of the NFL team for the longest, and if it wasn't that easy for him, he could have got the Denver Broncos.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Because money ain't paying for him, yeah.
Yeah, his heart is set on getting Seattle. Yeah, Washington was enticing because he has business in Washington, but that you seen him bow out that fast. You know what I'm saying? He bowed out fast. Like one of the guys that I talk to a lot, his name Herb. He's ambassador for it. He gave me inside information dealing with Josh Harris. So I already knew Josh Harris had the team. He was the one that Daniel Snyder wanted because there's something between Daniel Snyder and Mitchell Rouse that goes back years. You know what I'm saying? So, and we already know Daniel Snyder was not going to sell it to Jeff Bezos. So, and then this dude named Stephen Snuffleupagus, whatever his name is, out of Canada, he came out. Now, he probably would have been another choice, probably a distant second, third, whatever. But Josh Harris and Magic Johnson and Mitchell Rouse, and then there's more other minority owners part of it. It's like they got one of the richest Columbia families on their team. I didn't even know. I read up on that, and I was like, man, they really doing this. They're not playing around. You know what I'm saying? So, and just to say that the formality of the sale because of certain things, prime numbers, dealing with Daniel Snyder, and lo and behold, even though this man is selling this team, this dude's still gonna get earnouts from this team. He's still gonna be able to make money from it. So he's not even worried about it. But and then that
nice dollar amount too.
Yeah,
$6.3 billion.
Yeah. And then Brian Davis. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know the dude played for Duke. That's how useless to me he is. And then
we don't even want to talk about Duke players. We don't do that on here.
Yeah. But what was the other part of the question you had asked me?
How do you feel about the possibility of the team name needing to change?
Well, reading up on this copyright thing, if they are forced to change it, then hey, I'm all for it. I'm gonna support it regardless. Because Commanders stuck, but a lot of people don't like it because now that we got new owners, they was like, oh, well, we need to change the name, but you need a new stadium first.
Well, I'll say this: I think the name is trash. The stadium is definitely needs to you either need a new stadium or you need somebody to really come in and pour money into the stadium and fix it. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. If you get it now that you have new ownership, I know people talking about a new spot or redoing the old stadium and the RFK stadium or whatever. You have a decent sized stadium. It just needs renovations, right?
Yeah.
So you get an ownership team in here that's like, all right, instead of switching everything again, let's keep it where it's at. Let's just renovate it, right? It's the same thing that happened in Lincoln Financial. We added the spaces where now people can stand and get tickets and different things now to add more seats, add more revenue. Why not do something like that versus building a completely new stadium and having to deal with all that when you first come in? You can get your name straight. Whether it's going to be the Commanders or what is going to be something else.
Well, to your point, Josh Harris are looking into adding, some stuff to the stadium. Building the equity up on it because when y'all played us, 2 years ago or whatever, half of the doggone stadium fell down, almost knocked Jalen Hurts out unconscious.
That was actually this past year.
Yeah. The first. Yeah.
Yeah, I was at the game.
Oh wow! I'm glad you made it back. I would not want to be sued by a fellow Eagle fan on a show. But yeah, I mean they're already talking about it. I think it's if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 88 million or 100 million something supposed to be going into it because I think it's supposed to be a practice facility. They're gonna fix the stadium. They're gonna bring everything back to value and stuff like that. So, and nice. I think that's the main thing they need to do is fix the stadium. They need to get rid of that artificial turf, put grass down there, and then start working towards, building towards a stadium or changing the name. I think me personally, if they do decide to get a new stadium. And once it's locked in, then work on the name and have it changed. Have the name changed the year before the stadium opened.
But see, that's the thing. If this copyright thing goes away, it's talking about, you may not have that option. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And so I'm because matter of fact, as I read up on it today, it's a guy, a DC man that copyrighted 2 times, and I think it said Washington something something
Just like the
Commanders.
Commanders League or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Classic Commanders or something like that.
hmm
And he
Commanders Classic. That's what it is. Commanders
yeah,
Classic.
and then he said that they said he had had it like that before because he thought he wanted to make sure that the name was pretty much um, trying to guess the name. Matter of fact, before it happened. So
Yeah.
so I me personally, I know a lot of Commander fans wishing this fails through. So a lot of people want werewolves. I don't know why everybody's now. It's kind of fitting werewolves because Sam Howell, woo, the leader of the pack. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I could play on that a lot. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people
Yeah.
play on that a lot. So I mean, everybody seems they like werewolves a lot. You know what I'm saying? So, but then you got to go through a whole uniform changing and helmets and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, I think the thing
I think that would be nice though, like getting rid of Dan, because everybody's rooting for you guys to get rid of Dan Snyder. Like that,
Yeah.
everybody was on your guys' side with that one. He was just a bad reputation for the NFL and everything. It was just no good. So I mean, getting rid of him, possibly either renovating or getting a new stadium and also changing the name. It's like a fresh start. You could start a new build off of that. And I mean, that would be sweet. That'd be nice for you guys.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like I said, I'm all for it. You know, Man, I've been with this franchise since I was a youngin', you know, when they was Redskins, not, you know, and I've seen the transition, the ups and downs and everything that just went along with this team. But just, you know, with like you said, with new ownership and this trademark thing falls through, go ahead and change it. And then just say, well, hey, you know, because they're going to have to change it immediately if it falls through. So, they can't keep it and run it through the whole season, but they'll just probably have to figure out a way how to change the helmets quickly.
Yeah, I would just bust
out the old the old unis for a year and go back to the football team for a year or two.
Yeah,
Washington football team.
Change back to the Washington. And you know what? I really liked that name. People because it had a different ring. It was their own identity. You know, it was
most fans. I mean, I can't say necessarily your team specifically, but like my teams in different sports I root for. You want to have that kind of animal or whatever logo. You want to have that defining thing. But I think it's cool for in between time. I felt like if the best you could come up with was Commanders, you should just left it watching the football team until you got it sold and let the new owners, you know, go through that process of
But Jason Wright, even though he has done some things in the office, but Jason Wright, though, when they botched this, because they they let it leak out. People was already guessing. They let it leak out, and they did a poor job trying to disguise it. I make my own logo, and I could do a better job than them. You know what I'm saying?
I could do a better job than them, definitely.
So the thing about it is that people, the fan base is tired. I mean, I do these videos all the time, and I just sit back and watch how they are tired. They tired of losing. They tired of being a mockery. They tired of being the butt of everybody's joke. And, you know, Dan Snyder has crippled his organization for over 30 years and had a huge cloud on it. And it's taking somebody like Josh Harris and Magic Johnson doing to come in and bring some pedigree winning to their, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't even know Josh Harris is a part owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I wasn't aware of that. He should have to sell that once they rationalize it because they don't let you do part of two teams because that's what happened with the Panthers on them.
Go ahead.
I would say real quick, we had a comment during our tight end talk. I didn't get back to it, but it was talking about Jeff Thomas and the tight end from the construction site that played in the 2003 Super Bowl. I wouldn't put him in our top 10, but he is somebody of notoriety that, you know, played for the Eagles. Also wanted to just try to just put a ribbon on um, the game. So I'll start with you, Martin, since you're a guest, of course. Did you have any other thoughts on that first Eagles Commanders game? And like I said, when we get to that second game, we'll definitely have you back on so we can give you a chance
Yeah.
to go on us a little bit too.
I think that with that first game, I mean, like I said, I think our offensive line didn't have. I mean, it was like 3 games into the season, we didn't have no continuity. We barely beat Jacksonville that game. Um, I think we was what 2-1, 2-0 when we came to y'all, or 1-1, something like that. I think we was 2-0, and then we lost to y'all that game, something like that. But I
Y'all
think,
were 1-1.
yeah, 1-1. Okay, I
Yep.
know it's somewhere around there. Um, and then we wasn't really strong. I like I said, Brian Robinson, that was a blow to us because we could have used him if he was healthy. J.D. McKissick was injured, so we didn't have. It was hard to navigate, and then Carson Wentz was getting his bell rung from left to right. And I think the Eagles they knew Carson Wentz was starting, and they got up for that game. I think, and I don't know your name again. What's
Wyatt.
up, Brian? Wyatt.
Yeah.
Like Wyatt said that if Taylor Heineke was in there, the game plan probably would have been a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? But they knew Carson Wentz was going to be that guy, so they like, oh yeah, we got payback against him. So that's why I felt like the Eagles they really wanted to get after Wentz. It wasn't nothing personal against us, but they wanted him because he played for them. And everybody in Commander Country was like, "Oh, this is Wentz revenge tour." No, Revenge of the Nerds, more like it. So, but yeah, so with just to summarize that, we got 8 points, but the game was already in hand. Y'all spotted us 24 points and never looked back. Y'all just cruised the whole game from that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Wyatt, any last thoughts on the game, Wyatt?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I forgot to mention earlier was just, I mean, all of our points did come in that second quarter there. I think what would have been beneficial for us, because we were moving the ball somewhat how we wanted to through the air. I mean, we did mention, like you mentioned, Devontae Smith had a hell of a game, 169 yards. AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert had some amazing plays as well, but we didn't run the ball. And that was exactly what I think would have benefited us, just maybe getting some more touchdowns, maybe doing something more in the first, third, and fourth quarter there. So, I mean, as far as running the ball, Miles Sanders had 15 carries for 46 yards as our lead rusher, and Jalen Hurts had 20 on 9 carries. Didn't do anything else other than that. So, I mean, the Washington defensive line was giving us some fits. I mean, Jalen Hurts got sacked 3 times, and he was being run around a bit, so maybe that's why they went away from it. But you can't just abandon the run altogether either. You got to keep pushing that ball through to kind of open up the pass a little bit more. But they kind of just went away from that and just got very pass heavy through that second half.
Yeah, I feel like both teams got away from the run. Right. We just look at the team snaps. You think about it, we had 72 rushing yards. The Commanders had 87.
Yeah.
We had 5.9 yards a play. They had 3.2, but a lot of our yards came from, the difference in passing yards, which was 328 to 153 when you factor in sacks as well.
Yeah.
We both had a lot of punts. We had 6, they had 8. So we allowed 3 sacks, they allowed 9. So, a lot of just, the funny part is the Commanders won a time of possession by a solid 7 minutes. Right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It don't even seem that way because the way we was getting blitzed on offense so much.
Yeah. So, and then kind of like Wyatt said earlier, the only thing about the Eagles, even at this point, the second quarter, this was when it was our murder quarter. We put teams away in the second quarter, but you can't be a successful, consistent team and you score all your points in one quarter. Even if it's 24, that's great. but you want to have, at least some field goals or something later in the game. You want to at least try to
Yeah.
tack on some more points.
Yeah.
So hopefully our new OC will be more aggressive in those situations and not as likely to just kind of cut everything off once you get a lead. I did not like that aspect all year, and I think they came back to bite us the most in the Super Bowl, right? That not just always being like, okay, let's keep scoring, let's keep scoring, let's keep scoring, let's keep trying to run plays, let's keep trying to get down the field. I think we took that, we're going to save some stuff for later in the season aspect, and we took it a little bit too far.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's thoughts on that. A lot of things we could definitely still discuss with it, but kind of ride with that a little bit. But we do have another part of the show to go get to real quick, which of course is our cheap plugs. So this is our opportunity for us as well as you, Barton. Shout out where people can find you, what else you got going on, all that different stuff real quick. So we'll start with you, sir.
All right. Well, cool. We've been talking for a minute. I had to rebrand my channel because my channel got flagged. Somebody flagged my channel and messed me up. And so I'm kind of like in the rebuild process. But you can always find me on Twitter. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook. I got a Facebook group, LiveWire Sports Entertainment. I shortened the brand on it because it's LWSNE. And then I got a fan page also. Also, I got I drop videos between, I'm a Miami Hurricane fan, so I'm dropping videos with that and Washington Contact. Also, I do have a new segment starting Friday. It's called Today in History. Is all about every event, from Super Bowl player for the Washington Commanders. So trying something different, bring some little history to the viewers, who probably don't know much about the Washington franchise or whatever the case may be. The good, the bad, the ugly. So that's why, And then on Sundays, I do a whole weekly podcast recap of all the events that went on through the week and everything like that. And I don't know if y'all know, but on YouTube now you could you could post a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I figured that. So that's about it. So I'm pretty much just tapering down a little bit because I'll keep up with my Braves and stuff. I might drop something here and there. But this year I'm gonna just focus on mainly Washington and my Miami Hurricanes. So there's gonna be a lot of content dealing with these two teams. So, but like I said, you can always find me on YouTube and every other sports media.
All right, Wyatt.
Yeah, man. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Wyatt Brigard. You can also find me on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts at Cinema Trip Reviews. Whole other channel, just talk about movies and TV shows and do different reviews and stuff. Drop a review every Wednesday, which is pretty much exactly when we do this show. So right after you get done watching the show, make sure to go check out our new review of the day, of the week here. So you can pretty much find me on YouTube, Insta, Twitter, and wherever you get your podcasts. So drop in and leave me a good review.
Yeah, man. So, of course, Eagles League Podcast. You can find us everywhere: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook group. We also have TikTok. So we kind of you can find Eagles League everywhere. Shout out to the Shady Sports Network, who we are also streaming on as well. Giving us another opportunity, more people coming in, able to see the show, as well as hopefully getting them some new fans over on their side as well. Big thing about the Shady Sports Network, all football all the time. They cover all your football leagues, CFL, MLF if they have a season this year. They cover indoor football, USFL, XFL, players, coaches. They talk to people. If you hop over the network, you'll see they do a lot of interviews with people from those leagues. So a lot of things in regards to football as a whole. So great fit for us. Hey, obviously we're a football show, right? So those things kind of clicked together, worked out well. So I think it's a great partnership for both parties involved. Of course, me personally, Instagram at cool_McCain, Twitter Cool McCain. You can find me on Facebook, Cool McCain. I actually have TikTok as well, Cool McCain. You can find me there as well. So yeah, man, we just try to do this thing, build it up. Eagles Elite is our baby. We want to see it succeed. We're gonna be doing a recap, so keep in tune. Every week we'll be, doing a team. So if you want to figure out who we're doing that week, just go check out the schedule. This is week 3 right here. Next week will be week 4. We'll keep it moving along that line. Again, one more time, shout out to the Shady Sports Network. We get it in, and of course, down with this guy below us, NFC Beast will be back when the football season starts. Be ready for that. And keep your eye open if you are a WNBA fan. There'll be some Atlanta Dream content coming real soon.
Oh, yeah, they're struggling right now.
It's all good, man. It happens. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
Ryan Howard look good, though. But with that being said, man, we're going to go ahead and end things for the week. We always end it with the hashtag The Elite, hashtag Fly Eagles Fly. Make sure you're back next week. We'll give you some more of that good Eagles Elite fire. And again,
Yes, sir.
If you're watching, you need to check out this dope outro. Because if you watched before, you know we had the intro. But then we got a dope outro as well. Holla at your boys. Oh, and always remember, to your friends, for your enemies, tell them about us. Just because they don't like you doesn't mean they won't like us.